everyone. Happy Friday. Lori from Women's Health on the Go. I have a special guest over here, which I'm really, really excited, is Melissa King. And we're going to be talking about life after herpes, the emotional impact that it can have on us, which, you know, I've talked about herpes many times. I think it's really, really important. So I'm really excited to have Melissa. Melissa and I have talked many, many times. We have a passion for herpes and, you know, informing women and really helping out women. So, but as you know, I just go on a couple of minutes before just to make sure that we are live and that we can hear. I've been having sound problems in the past, but I think that we're going good and we're doing good. And let me just
live and that we can hear.
Okay, perfect.
I've been having sound problems
all right.
in the past.
Melissa, I would like you to say hi because I want to make sure
hi.
that I can. Okay, all right.
I'm here. Are we working? Can you hear me?
I hope we are. If anybody is here, please say hello. Tell us where you're, you're with us, and if you can see both of us. I'm Dave. Thank you very much. I can see you're here. It says good video, but just let's make sure that we can hear both of us. Let us know. And as I usually do while we're doing this, Melissa, I like to talk about history and also about a little bit of women's health. And I been reading this really great magazine that I got. And one thing that I thought was interesting is that there's been research done that shows that if everyone would just take one extra glass of water a day, for people who don't drink water, that the health benefits are extremely, like you're intaking less calories, less sugar, less cholesterol, what else you were taking, less something else, sodium intake, just from adding one extra glass a day.
That sounds good.
So I think that is really, really amazing. All right. Dave says Melissa is good audio, which we are good to go. Okay,
good.
So everyone, we're going to start the show. Again, my name is Lori from Women's Health on the Go, where we provide telemedicine for women. Today, I have a special guest. Oh, I got to go this way over here. Melissa King. She is a therapist in Manhattan, New York, and she's one of her passions, I would call it. Would you call it a passion, Melissa?
Yes, absolutely.
One of her passions is helping women to deal with the emotional impact of a herpes diagnosis. So, welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. It's so exciting to be here.
Oh, I'm really, really excited that you're here. So, just to start off, just to let everybody know, like, how did you get involved in becoming a therapist, and then where did herpes become your passion?
Well, it's a long story, so I'll try to give the short version. But I've always wanted to be a therapist, but I had a couple careers before actually getting here. I actually was originally an audio engineer.
Oh, wow.
And then realized that I was, not too excited about it. And so I moved to New York, did a stint dancing, studying dance, and then ended up doing health coaching because I was really interested in healthy eating and that sort of thing. And right around the time I became certified as a health coach, a very interesting thing happened in my life. I had been diagnosed with herpes at the age of 16. And so I went to herpes support groups. I was taking Valtrex. I was processing my self-esteem. How am I going to talk about this with other people? And by the time I was about 24, I had become pretty comfortable with it, and I had told most of the people in my life. And then I was in a relationship, talked to that person about it. He was like, this is making me too happy to, not be with you because of something like that. And I found out about these new blood tests, and I thought, well, because when I was diagnosed, we didn't have much, in the way of blood tests or anything. It was the 90s. And so I was like, I'm going to go find out if I have type 1 or type 2, like I'm finally going to kind of get some more answers here. And both my tests came back negative.
Wow.
So I had some symptomology that the doctor thought was herpes at the time. And I lived never really had symptoms again, but I knew that most people don't.
Yeah.
So I just thought, well, I still have to communicate with partners, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So when I found out, I was like, are you sure? I mean, it was, because this had become such a part of my life and part of my story. I actually got the test like 2 or 3 times again because I just, was like, this is so strange.
I can't believe this.
I know. But the funny thing is it had done so much for me in terms of like helping me to really value who I was, and, that it wasn't as impacting as, finding out that I was negative wasn't as impacting as a lot of people think that it would, because it had been 8 years and I'd gotten comfortable with it,
Right.
So it was just sort of like new news. And, and at the time I was studying to become a health coach and decided, I really want to give back to this community, because most of the time when I would go to the doctor, I knew more than my doctors did about it. And, I wanted to help people get accurate information, and I wanted to, help people to, gain their confidence and self-worth back, and to know that, yes, there are people out there that are going to be fine with this, and you can talk to people about it. You can open up about it, because the stigma is really, when you find out you have something like this, it's like you're in that second when the doctor tells you your results, or you become part of a stigmatized group.
Yep.
And process, and more than the medical, I mean, as a nurse practitioner, I'm sure that you know this. I mean, medically, it's, for most people, it's not too consequential. You get a rash every now and then.
Yep.
Maybe.
Yep.
And, but it's the stigma that people struggle with. It's that emotional, mental health impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, obviously what I do, there's lots of times when, and we've talked about this, a lot of people don't get screened for it. They go to a provider, they ask for a complete screening, then they come to me, and when they ask me, I go, okay, this is what I can do. And I always talk about herpes. And, then sometimes people become positive, and they're like, they don't understand, like, how did this happen? When did it happen? And that whole conversation also about, well, they don't standardly test for this, and it is a huge emotional, and me sitting there and saying, listen, this is common for me. I'm commonly having this conversation with people, but when it's happening to you, it doesn't, what I'm saying to them doesn't even compute in their brain. And
right.
I totally get that, and I think what you do is very, very important just in that regard, because, there's times I had a patient one time, she used to come to me and she goes, listen, I don't need anything. I just need to talk about this herpes diagnosis. Like, what do I do? How do I tell this new partner and stuff like that? And, it really is a major emotional impact. Yeah. And as Dave says, he commented, he goes, I believe that this can also relate to men as well.
Yes.
Which, I don't know how many, men talk about this, but I think that definitely this can affect even guys too, Yeah,
I actually think, men have almost less resources to work through this, because women, in our society, we talk to each other, we process, and I think we feel more comfortable going to therapy, and we feel more comfortable going to the doctor.
Yes.
And so I think, men struggle to find, like, to feel comfortable opening up. I've had over the years, many men call me, and they call once and then I never hear from them again. Mm-hmm. And they don't actually come in, or, I will try to send them resources, but I think it's much harder for them to because socially it's like you're not supposed to open up as a man, right? No. But that's obviously we know that's not healthy.
Us girls, we go, so what's going on with that? And the guy will be like, well, we don't talk about that stuff. Right. We don't talk about that stuff, where we're like, hey, what's going on? It's totally right. So let's just talk about the impacts, that it has on women, or even anybody, because I do think that it can relate to both genders, all genders actually. What do you find is like the most common thing that people say to you when they first come to you, when they say, I've got herpes? Like, what is usually typically the first thing they say?
They usually feel like they're dirty, It's like comes with this like feeling, like this things in my body, like and like they're going to repel people, and oftentimes there's some depressive symptoms, even, I'm having a hard time getting out of bed in the morning sometimes because of how they feel about themselves, and just, and they want to know, like, is my dating life over? Am I going to be able to find somebody? And I really, because of going through this when I was 16, I think I really understand the feeling that comes with that. And I'm really, when I first started working with people who, so when I started doing coaching, by the way, it was like 10 years later or something that I decided to go to school to become a therapist. I think I missed that part when I was describing earlier because I was realizing that in the coaching, I was just feeling limited, I was providing education. We were talking about self-esteem, healthy eating and stuff like that. But I didn't have the training to deal with the depression and the anxiety and, and working through and processing all of these other mental health concerns. And so that's why I went back to school and became a therapist. But I've been doing this work now long enough because when I first started, I had my experience. I had known some people from the support groups I had been to. But now it's been, that was, I think, 2002, 2003 when I started. So now I've got almost 15 years of watching people, ride this ride, coming into my office, feeling like their life is over, and then coming out of it feeling better, stronger self-esteem, feeling better about themselves.
That's awesome.
Using herpes as a catalyst to start taking better care of themselves, to start being pickier about the partners they're choosing, meaning that not that they were indiscriminate before, but, maybe they were putting up with stuff that, what else? And I have to say that the majority of my clients, end up dating, and usually they're dating people who don't have herpes. And so, and my clients tend to agree that it's really important to tell their partners. So these are not people that are like dating, people who don't have it and not telling them. They're telling them before sex, and I think, we feel it's hard to imagine, like, how is somebody going to accept me, like, with this, but there are a lot of people out there, connection, we value connection, and we don't find it with anybody. And I think we forget that when we imagine, I would never date somebody who has herpes, but you meet somebody, you care about them and you like them and you want to spend time with them, and they tell you this, it changes things.
Absolutely.
For many people. And that's not, yes, my clients have been through rejection. I'm not going to pretend like that doesn't happen. Of course it happens.
Yeah, it
does. But that's dating.
Whether you have herpes or not, you're going to get some rejection along the line. Right. I mean, that's absolutely. Now, that is actually a really good, because that's one thing that patients always ask me. Do you have for anybody that's watching right now and they have herpes, and, that conversation about, that first conversation that they have with their partner about being diagnosed, I have herpes. Yeah. Do you have certain pointers or, approaches that you go over with your patients?
Yeah. Number one, I really try to help my patients to get, to figure out how to do it in a way that feels authentic for them, because there's a lot of advice online about say this, don't cry, and it's like you can go into this conversation like, oh my gosh, I have to act like I'm confident and that can become almost more stressful, I think, Yes, if you can talk about it confidently, that's great. And I think that, you're going to come out of it feeling good if you can do that. But I have had patients tell me about breaking down, crying and telling their partner, I have something that starts with an H. And, and spending 2 hours with their partner trying to get it out of them, and they finally tell them, and the partner's like, that's it? So, like, you know, I think that you don't have to do it all perfectly.
Yeah.
But I do think that for many people, it can be helpful to just tell the story. Like, hey, you know, I was doing, you know, broke up with my ex and I went out one night and, you know, I was drinking and went home with somebody and you know, telling the story, like putting it in a context, you know, and a lot of times the story is my, you know, ex-partner, didn't know they had it. And, you know, 3 months into the relationship or a year into the relationship, I contracted this, or I didn't know that I could get it from their mouth, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that is that whole concept of how do we get herpes as well. And we can have oral, which oral can then be transferred down to, to genital. You know, a lot of people don't know this kind of stuff, unfortunately. And a lot of times when, you know, I do diagnose with someone, they're like, well, they said that they had testing and they were, you know, clean, you know, and I go, and that's where that whole concept of, and you and I could probably talk for hours about testing for herpes, because we both, testing is good, but sometimes it's very challenging, especially here in New York. Most of the time, the partners don't even know. They've never had symptoms. Sometimes people are diagnosed with herpes and they will never, ever have an outbreak, you know, and that is, you know, I think really important even when we're diagnosing people, because sometimes the first thing is, I'm going to kill him.
Yeah. You
know?
Immediately think somebody like betrayed you or lied to you, and I think often that's not the case.
No, it's not. It really isn't. What else kind of like do you, first off, I mean, is there anything when you initially meet a client that you give them, or like, all right, listen, we may have a little long road here, but this is what I want you to start off with. You know, I want you to go home with this and just sit with this for a week or something. Like, what do you initially in that first, you know, visit or two?
Yeah. So I let people know that there's hope, and that I've watched many, many people come out of this, like, feeling like, you know, good about themselves and dating successfully, and that I had patients get married and have kids, you know, just that knowing, and I try to let them know, I know that you don't feel like that's you right now, but I just want you to hang on to that little nugget that happens for many, many people, and that can be you. The other piece is a lot of education, because a lot of times patients come in and their doctors haven't told them anything about it, or their doctors have said things that have really confused them, such as, you know, I still get a lot of patients coming in saying, my doctor told me that I can't transmit this if I don't have symptoms. Okay. So then I have to explain, you know, viral shedding, and that, you know, you can't tell when you're shedding virus. You're not shedding time, but the problem is that you don't know when you are, which is why you do have to inform your partner, or why it's important to. We talk about, sometimes patients come in and their tests are confusing, so we talk about sorting that out. I always tell patients, make sure you get a copy of your results. Even if you have to call your doctor and have your doctor send it to you, or you have to pick it up, just have that copy, because, you know, seeing it yourself and being able to know, like, okay, this was interpreted correctly is, I think, really important. Yeah. What else? I do try, like, for the women that I work with, I try to, you know, get them into the women. So I have a therapy group that meets twice a month.
I was just going to ask you about the group. Yeah.
So I actually, there's a little bit of a waiting list, but I try to get people into that as soon as I can. I would love to start one for men, but I have had men who've expressed interest, and then, like I said, they sort of disappear. Yeah. You know, so I'm starting to think I might be able to recently. I've done some things to make it a little bit easier to find me online, and I've had more men contacting me recently. So I'm thinking it actually might be possible soon to get something together. But anyway, I think that probably the most healing thing for anyone that I've ever worked with is walking into a room and seeing other people who look just like you who have this.
Yep.
You know, because otherwise we're comparing ourselves with this image in our mind of the kind of person who gets, we've been told, who gets herpes.
Yep.
Right? So to walk into a room and see like, oh my gosh, like these people are normal. And
they're just like me.
They're professionals. They're just like me.
Yeah.
And so like, I don't think there's anything more comforting than that. It can be tricky for some people to get people to come to a group because I think there's a lot of fear of like coming to the group is like really saying, this is me. Like there, before you've actually seen the other people, it's really scary I think, to be like, there's something about like taking ownership of it, like, you know, and by not going to the group, there's this sort of illusion that I can have some distance.
Yep. I don't really have that. It's just an imaginary thing on the side. Yeah.
Right.
No, absolutely.
So, but the women, they really connect and, you know, share their stories with each other, from successes with dating to, you know, rejections, you know, and to be able to kind of like walk through that with each other, you know, is so helpful. And then also like we have conversations like, what are your symptoms like? Do you take suppressive therapy? You know, that's another thing you know, which maybe it would be helpful for you to share a little bit from your perspective about suppressive therapy, because I have a number of patients coming in recently who their doctors are refusing to give them suppressive therapy because their doctors are saying it's toxic to the liver.
I would not give a patient, you know, I mean, like any I could go about, even pharmaceuticals. You know, every pharmaceutical drug out there has, you know, side effects and, you know, things that can happen, you know, this liver toxicity. I mean, it's not like, you know, you're going to take a couple pills and like next thing you know, you're toxic and that's it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Is it a possibility? There's a possibility that you can take any medication and have any major reaction. I personally would never not give someone suppressive therapy. It's almost like you got to go, okay, listen, you know, this is this medication. Here's the risks. Here are the benefits. It's even with birth control pills. Yeah. It's the same way. There's risks when you take birth control pills. And, you know, these are the risks. These are the benefits. You know, what's going on in your life right now? Okay, you have a situation. All right. I got to inform you everything. You got to weigh the risks and benefits. I personally would never not give someone suppressive therapy because of that. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't, it's, how could you do that? Like
I think there's a paper actually Terry Warren sent me. Terry Warren is a nurse practitioner.
Amazing woman.
Yeah, she does a lot of research on herpes. She helps people sort out, what's it called? Like ambiguous test results.
Yes.
So she sent me a research paper recently. I have to read it, but it's talking about the long-term use of acyclovir, because she says that she's had patients on it for decades and no problems. Yeah. And in all the years I've been doing this, a large percentage of my patients take suppressive therapy and they are fine. They say it doesn't, you know, they don't feel a thing, you know, different, other than that it makes them feel more empowered, which is a positive benefit. It makes them feel like they're less anxiety about being with a new partner, because they can tell their partner, hey, this reduces the risk of transmission by 50%. I had one patient in all the years who had a bad reaction to the generic valacyclovir, and she switched the brand name and she was fine. She had a lot of allergies anyway. So she was sensitive. So I mean, it concerns me when doctors withhold that, because I feel like, one, it should be the patient's choice, and two, of the many medications that we give patients regularly, Valtrex seems to be pretty innocuous.
I think that I would definitely give somebody Valtrex. I think like you have pointed on a lot of things that Valtrex is, or whatever you're going to take. It does. It's empowering. I've never had anybody have any problems on it. And like, I prescribe it. I mean, again, there's risks and benefits or side effects to every pharmaceutical drug. I mean, have you seen the commercials lately? Some of them say you could die. Right? I mean, some of them could say this can cause heart failure and death. I mean,
yeah,
everything is when it comes to pharmaceuticals like that. And it's to not allow a patient, like I always say, listen, my job here is that I'm going to provide the information. I'm going to provide what the research says. I'm going to provide all this information. And you have to make that decision for yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
Just because you have doctor or medical provider, like, you're going to just determine what's good for that person in a way. I mean, sometimes, yes, something is very contraindicated or something.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I totally get that. But, to not give somebody suppressive therapy, I love Terry. I think she's awesome. She has a great website, and I give to everybody, westoverheights.com. I think it's westoverheights.com, right?
Yep.
I'll put that link over there. I'm going to put also Melissa's link down in this as well. But she has a great book, a handbook online that goes really into everything.
The free herpes handbook.
Yes.
And so when you go to her website, she's actually closed the clinic. So don't be discouraged by that. If you go, look at the menu bar, you'll find the herpes links, and it will take you to the free herpes handbook. And I always tell patients, read that and stop Googling.
Yes.
Because Googling
absolutely.
makes you feel bad.
Absolutely. I always say to people, listen, this is where I want you to go. I don't want you to go anywhere else. This is where you can go. You can buy the book if you want, or you can read it free online. Whatever you want to do, this is where I want you to go, because this is the information that I know is accurate.
Right.
Online, being online and Google is great, but it could be very dangerous with a lot of things out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but this was great. I mean, we've been on for a little over a half hour.
Oh my gosh, you said this goes fast.
It does. Right. It goes very, very fast. But I'm hoping that, the whole purpose of having this show today is, I think it's really important for women to know that, one, it's okay if you're having these emotions after you have this diagnosis. I think it's a very natural process, but it's not the end of the road. There are people out here. I'll help you. Melissa will help you. And there's lots of, I keep going, the Melissa will help you. There's lots of people that are willing to talk and to help you get through this.
Yeah. And I just want to say that I have been trying to write regularly about topics related to herpes on my blog. And if you go to my blog, I have a post on, my favorite herpes resources. I have, and if you go to the tags and click the herpes one, it's like all the herpes articles will come up. And I'm going to try to update that regularly. Of course, I always tell people, sometimes we get new research and something might be out of date. And I don't want to be that person that thinks, I've got all, I try to stay as up to date as I can. But, I was going to say something else. What was it? Oh, yeah. I wanted to also say that another person, Ella Dawson, who is from Brooklyn, she came out publicly about having herpes a couple years ago, and she wrote about it. I think it was in Women's Health magazine, and she does a lot of advocacy and very, very positive. She puts out a lot of positive information about herpes and is very open about her own experience. And I think that's another, if you're looking for somebody, not everybody's going to relate to her, but I think that, if you're looking for a positive sort of face.
Okay, I think we came back on, everybody. Hello. We somehow got cut off. All of a sudden I just saw red, as if I think Facebook said, okay, we've had enough. But anyway, I wanted to come back on really quick and just kind of finish up, because I think this has been a great show. I'm very grateful, Melissa, for you for coming on to the show and sharing everything. I am going to put Melissa's website, myheartdances.com. She's in Manhattan, but if you're not located in Manhattan, she does exactly kind of what I do. I do telemedicine, which is via video conferencing. She can do the same thing. So if you want to talk to her and reach out to her.
New York residents.
For New York residents, yes. So thank you, Melissa, so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
I just want to take a second, too, to thank you, because when I found you and saw that you had an interest in this, I was so excited, and it's just been so fun getting to know you and like bouncing thoughts off you over email and, you know, talking with you. And, I've been raving about you to my clients, so I'm just so happy to have you as a resource.
No, thank you. I was so grateful when you came in and actually did the same, like found me, and I'm like, oh my God, this is great. She has a support group and all this kind of stuff. This is amazing. So, and I know this is just the beginning of a relationship here. We'll definitely, I'm hoping to have you back on again. So
thank you. Yes, okay. I'd love to.